Hi, I'm Clarissa Deming, and this is Rocket. I'm the author of the Sub Fedora, and I help contribute time to the Utah Humane Society. And currently, they need isolation gowns. They provided this pattern by Peekaboo, and I'm going to be showing you some tips and some step-by-step instructions to help you make it in case you're lost. Thank you, Rocket, and Rocket's going to help. Thank you, bud. So before you start this project, make sure to download the PDF and print it out from Peekaboo Pattern Shop. The link is on the Humane Society of Utah's Facebook page. And then you're going to want to print out the pattern pieces that'll come in this PDF. And then this chart will show you how to assemble the PDF together into the pattern itself. As always, make sure to pre-wash your fabric. I really highly recommend Lysol laundry sanitizer. So here I have a king size sheet folded in half. You can use queen size, but probably no smaller than that because you'll really need a lot of fabric. So here is my front pattern. Here's my back. These are printed out from the PDF. Follow the instructions, cut them out. I think the Humane Society said they want a large. The pattern might have said large is the best size. We're doing large. The sleeve pattern is over there. We'll deal with that later because it needs to be on 2 folds. So I'll show you how to do that. So the front needs to be on the fold. So make sure it's right up against the fold. And I like to put it at the bottom of the sheet. So that way it already has the hem on there. There's the back. The back doesn't need to be on a fold, so it can just be right next to it. This space we're going to leave for ties, or you can use bias tape, but I like to make the ties myself so they match. And like I said, we'll mess with the sleeve once we cut out these two, because the sleeve needs to be folded twice. So when it comes to the ties, the Humane Society suggested not to do the Velcro on the back, but to do ties instead. It also says to use bias tape. I'll show you how to use the bias tape, but I like making my own just so it matches. So for the neck waist tie, you're going to want a rectangle that's 10 inches by 1 3/4. And for the waist, if you're going to make it out of the fabric, you'll want 20 inches by 2.5 inches. And then I'll show you how to sew those together. That'll create some ties for the waist. Here's the first one I made, so that's for the waist, and for the neck as well. So here I'm going to draw out my ties. Since this is already doubled, you just have to draw one of the waist and one of the neck. So there's 2.5, and there's 20. Now if you want to use a straight edge, you can, but since we're sewing this together, it's not gonna be that wonky if your edges aren't perfectly straight. And you'll see when we go to the sewing machine, you'll see that. So one of the waist, one of the neck. Since it's doubled, you'll have 2 for each. For the sleeve, instead of folding the sheet in half, fold as much as you need on one side, then cut it out, and then fold the sheet again, and then cut out another sleeve. That way each one is on the fold. Here's another modification that I did, is that the Humane Society requested that instead of doing elastic here, as the pattern says, they want to be able to tuck it under their gloves. So they said thumb holes. Thumb holes are a little difficult just because everyone's thumb is going to land at a different point. But I do want to make sure the sleeves are longer so that way they can tuck them into their gloves. So what I did was I added 2 inches to the end of the sleeve. That way I know it's going to be long enough to be able to tuck under a glove. So just kind of draw that sleeve a little bit longer. That way, when we fold it over and finish the edge, there'll be plenty of room to tuck it under a glove. So throughout this video, I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks that I use to kind of speed things up. These aren't the proper way to do things. If you want to do them the proper way, that's fine. I just think it's quicker to do this, so that way I can get as many done as possible. So, as far as this goes for me kind of cheating, to cut my second sleeve, I folded my sheet again, and instead of pinning it, there's enough friction here with the two sheets on each other that I just cut around there while laying it on top, so I don't have to worry about pinning it. The first thing I do is I create the ties. How I create the ties is I fold one side in half, so, then fold, sorry, hard to do one-handed. Then I fold the other side to the middle, then I fold it in half, and so, to make a tie. And here's where me saving time comes in again. I don't actually pin this like this, I just sew. Because since they're ties, they don't have to be exact. They, you know, like I said, they're functional. Our ties all done. Now we pin both shoulders together and make sure the part where the sleeve is gonna go together. That's how you know which shoulder goes to which shoulder. Pin it and sew it. Make sure to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That's what the pattern calls for. So the next step is to finish off the neckline. The pattern says to use bias tape. This is bias tape maxi piping. I have some other bias tape to use up. If you don't have bias tape and don't want to get some, you can probably always finish it off by folding it again, and just doing a hem. But I have this bias tape to use up. And here's another cheater method. It's probably like proper to pin this all the way around. I think it's easier just to sew as I go without the pins. So as I said, Rocket is a very helpful boy. So next is the sleeve. So it doesn't matter what side the sleeve goes on. So this is our neckline finished. This is our semicircle for the sleeve. The easiest thing to do with sleeves, for me, is to take one side, line it up with the first side, high rocket, take the other side, so the other side of the sleeve, line it up with this side. That way you know they're gonna meet on both sides and you're not gonna have any spare. And then, from there, take the middle of the sleeve, and there's your shoulder. So take approximately about the middle. Sometimes it's easy to see when you have it exactly on the fold, but sometimes not. And pin the middle. And then from there, you can start pinning between the middle and the end. That way you make sure your sleeve goes on even while you sew. This part, I would definitely pin together. It's much easier if you do so. So here we have the next step is to sew from the start of the sleeve to the armpit to the very end. Alright, so next we're going to finish the end of the sleeve. Like I said, since they want it a little bit longer to fit under gloves, just going to do a rolled hem. So I'm going to fold it about 1/4 inch, fold it again, and this I definitely pin, not all the way around, I do about 4 pins, that way it stays in place. So yeah, once again, quarter turn, rolled hem, that way it's nice and finished. And then on this I'm going to do a zigzag stitch. I think that's what the pattern calls for. Plus it looks nice and it'll keep it in its place for when they put gloves over it. Okay, so we're almost done. We got to finish up the back. So what I do first is I do the same thing as I did with the sleeve, is I fold it 1/4 inch, and make that rolled hem. When it goes for the ties, I put on the ties last, and so the pattern has a Velcro placement. Since they don't want Velcro, I'm just going to use this as where I need to put my neck. So I make a little mark right there, and that's after I'm done with my hem. That's where I'm going to put my tie. So I'm just going to sew it back and forth, sew the crap out of it, and then that'll be a necktie for each side. And then in case you're wondering what this notch was doing here in this pattern, because I was curious too the first time I did it, this notch is for the waist. So remember the 20-inch piece. So again, I just made a mark with a pen. So once that's hemmed, I'll sew that there, sew the crap out of it with the zigzag stitch for both sides, and that'll be the waist. So this is the whole thing completed. The sleeves are done. I finished the ends. They've got the ties on them, so they're all ready to go. The last step is I'm going to rinse them in the washer just with some sanitizer, and once they come out of the dryer, put them in a Ziploc bag so they're nice and clean and ready to go, ready to use. If you have any questions, leave comments below. Thanks.